I couldn't believe she stole my husband. And for a while, I didn't even know she was stealing him. My name is Vanessa Moore, and for 15 years, I thought I was happily married. Daniel and I met during our senior year at the University of Washington. He studied architecture, and I was diving headfirst into event management. He was the kind of man who noticed when you changed your shampoo, remembered your coffee order, and always kissed you on the forehead like it meant something. Our wedding was the first event I ever planned, and I built a career off the dream we created together. People envied us. I envied us. We weren't perfect, but we fit. We shared morning routines, coffee at 7:30 sharp, Sunday jogs, Friday wine and Netflix traditions. I still remember the way he used to look at me when I was talking to clients or presenting at a gala, like he couldn't believe I was his wife. We bought a little white house in the Pearl District with a lemon tree out front. I thought, this is the life. But sometimes the worst betrayals don't start with shouting. They start with silence. About a year ago, something shifted. It was subtle. His late nights at the office stretched longer. His phone faced down more often, and his touch grew colder. I chalked it up to stress. His firm had just taken on a high-profile civic design project, and with that came pressure, long meetings, and I assumed fatigue. I was patient, supportive. I made his favorite meals, left notes in his bag, offered space when he needed it. But in quiet moments, a small voice inside me began to whisper, "Something is wrong." That voice grew louder when I started noticing changes I couldn't explain. He bought a new tie I'd never seen, a cologne I didn't recognize. He became protective of his laptop, closed tabs quickly, and smiled at texts he wouldn't show me. Once, I caught him stepping out to take a call in the backyard. When I asked who it was, he said, "Just work," with a tone that closed the door on any further questions. That was when I started watching more closely. And then there was Olivia. At the time, she was my assistant. Young, bright, full of energy. I had mentored her myself, given her real responsibility, even defended her when she missed a client deadline. She looked up to me. At least that's what I thought. She was eager to learn, always stayed late, and gradually, somehow, began to appear in places I didn't expect, waiting in the lobby when Daniel picked me up, offering to help carry supplies to the car, laughing too hard at his jokes during company dinners. I remember brushing it off, thinking I was imagining things, letting my insecurities speak louder than reason. Daniel would never do that. Olivia respects me. But behind their shared glances and convenient coincidences, something far more calculated was unfolding. I just didn't know it yet. The argument started subtly. Sharp sighs, slammed drawers. "You're overreacting" becoming his go-to phrase. We fought more over little things. Why he didn't call when he said he would, why he barely touched his dinner anymore, why I felt like I was living with a stranger. I tried to keep the peace. I didn't want to be the paranoid wife. I told myself, maybe I'm just stressed. Maybe this is a rough patch all couples go through. Then he told me about the business trip. "It's just 1 week," he said, sipping coffee like it was no big deal. "Mark and I are flying out to San Diego. We've got some investor meetings lined up, and I need to clear my head." I nodded slowly, biting my tongue even as my stomach churned. I didn't want to seem clingy or suspicious, especially not after our recent fights. So I smiled and said, "Sounds good. Just let me know when you land." I played the role of the supportive wife because that's what I was taught to do. But the moment he walked out that door with his carry-on and air of indifference, I felt the weight of a lie I couldn't prove. Still, I pushed it down. Over the next few days, our texts were normal. He even FaceTimed me from what looked like a hotel suite, sleek and modern, with palm trees visible through the window. He said Mark had gone out for drinks and teased me about how he'd rather be home with me. I laughed. I wanted to believe him. And for a while I did. Until I saw Mark. I was at a local bookstore on Thursday afternoon, browsing for a new planner when I heard someone say my name. I turned around, and there he was. Mark Jacobs standing 3 feet away, holding a cup of coffee like he hadn't just been in San Diego with my husband. I froze. Mark? I managed. He looked confused for a second, then said, Vanessa? Hey, what are you doing here? The question hit harder than it should have. I blinked. Wait, aren't you supposed to be out of town? With Daniel? Mark raised an eyebrow. No. We wrapped that pitch meeting last week. Haven't seen Daniel in days. My mouth went dry. He kept talking, something about his daughter's birthday party and how he was picking up a gift, but I wasn't listening anymore. I was already replaying every word Daniel had said. The hotel room, the texts, the FaceTime. Who was he really with? And then it hit me. Olivia. A few days earlier, she'd mentioned taking a much-needed girls' trip with a friend. She'd been vague, rushed, saying she needed a break from work and to reset. At the time, I hadn't thought twice about it. Why would I? She was young, single, entitled to a vacation. But now the puzzle pieces slammed together with painful clarity. What if she wasn't alone? What if Daniel wasn't in San Diego with Mark, but with her? The moment I got home, I couldn't sit still. I paced the living room like a detective on the brink of a breakthrough. Every second that passed without answers felt like a betrayal piling on top of the last. I kept hearing Mark's voice. Haven't seen Daniel in days, echoing over and over in my head like an alarm bell. I opened my laptop, took a deep breath, and started digging. First, I checked Daniel's location history, something I'd never done in all our years together. He had no idea that his iPad, synced to the same Apple ID, sat quietly in our home office, feeding me breadcrumbs of his supposed business trip. What I saw made my heart slam into my chest. He'd never even left town. The locations, a cozy rental cabin just 2 hours north, Lake Crest Pines, a romantic getaway spot. I felt sick. Next, I opened our credit card statements. I searched by date. My eyes widened. 2 dinners at expensive restaurants in that same lakeside area, a charge for a couple's massage, and one that made me want to scream, a jewelry boutique known for custom-engraved lockets. I could practically see the scenario, him handing her the necklace, whispering promises meant for me, not her. My fingers trembled over the keyboard. But I wasn't done. I logged into our joint cloud storage account, a place where we kept family photos, holiday memories, kids' school projects. Daniel had gotten sloppy. He'd forgotten that his phone automatically backed up to it. And there, hidden in a folder titled Trip Notes, were selfies of him, of Olivia, her arms around his neck, his smile wide and unashamed. I clicked on one by accident and heard her voice through a video. To forever, babe. Forever? I sat in stunned silence, the reality finally crashing in. He hadn't just lied. He'd planned this, and not just recently. This had been going on for months, maybe longer. I thought of the nights he claimed to be working late, of the weekends he said he needed space. All the emotional distance suddenly made sense. He'd already left me. He just hadn't told me yet. But now I had everything I needed. I took screenshots of the photos, saved the receipts, downloaded location logs. I created a folder on my desktop labeled Evidence. It felt cold, clinical, but necessary. If Daniel was going to betray me and humiliate me, then he was going to feel the weight of it. I wasn't going to cry on the bathroom floor and wait for him to come clean. I was going to take control. When Daniel came home from his business trip, he looked tan, relaxed, even smug. He tossed his suitcase by the door, kissed me on the cheek like nothing had happened, and walked toward the kitchen asking, "Miss me?" I didn't answer. I just stood there in the hallway, heart pounding, folder in hand. He turned back when he noticed the silence. "Everything okay?" he asked. I walked over and dropped the evidence on the kitchen island. The photos, receipts, screenshots, everything. I didn't say a word. I just watched his face fall inch by inch as the realization dawned on him. He went pale. "Where did you get all this?" he muttered. I stared back. "Does it matter?" He tried to spin it at first, said it was complicated. that it wasn't what it looked like, that he loved me, that I was his real life, and this was just a mistake. But I'd heard enough. I cut him off. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. This question mark. This is betrayal with a side of cowardice. His voice cracked when he said, I don't know why I did it, Vanessa. I didn't want to lose you. But he already had. We had been married for 12 years. Our finances were joint, our assets shared. And so when I told him I was leaving and that I was taking half, he had nothing to say. He just stood there, defeated. I packed my bags and moved into a small rental a few blocks away. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't us, but it was mine. And in that silence, I started to rebuild myself. The weeks that followed were hard. I missed the routines, the familiar morning coffee he used to make, the empty space on the other side of the bed. But I filled those gaps with purpose. I joined a writing class. I started running again. I painted the bedroom wall a bright coral color, just because I could. I was no longer someone's wife. I was me again. And then, months later, something arrived in the mail. A cream-colored envelope. Thick, expensive cardstock. I thought maybe it was a late bill or a wedding invite for someone else, until I read the names. Daniel Carter and Olivia West. I sat down, stunned. A wedding? After everything? Was he really marrying her? I didn't know what was worse, the betrayal or the fact that he thought I'd want to know. That night, I met my friend Maya for drinks. I needed to vent. I needed to breathe. I showed her the invitation, and she almost choked on her wine. Vanessa? Wait, Olivia West? I nodded. Her eyes went wide. I know her, or rather, I know of her. My cousin's ex-husband married her 5 years ago. My pulse raced. What do you mean? She disappears, marries rich, divorces, takes a big chunk of money, then goes back to some guy she actually lives with. She's been doing it for years. She's not just a homewrecker, she's a con artist. Suddenly, everything clicked. The charm, the fake vulnerability, the calculated timing. Olivia hadn't just stolen my husband. She was running a scheme. And Daniel? He was her next victim. I couldn't sleep that night. The puzzle pieces were flying around in my mind like a tornado. Olivia wasn't just the other woman. She was a professional manipulator, someone who used marriage as a business model. I kept asking myself, who is she really? So I did what I always do when I need clarity. I got to work. I started with the basics. Her full name was Olivia West, but that was just the surface. A reverse image search of her engagement photo led me down a rabbit hole. I found old wedding blogs, photos of a woman who looked eerily like Olivia, but under different names. Olivia Harrison, Liv Whitmore, Olivia Clark. Always blonde, always beautiful, always marrying someone wealthy. And then, like clockwork, gone within a year. I couldn't believe no one had caught her before. But she was clever, used different states, different legal aliases. Each time she walked away with a sizable divorce settlement, disappeared, and later resurfaced under a new identity. She had even posed as a freelance interior designer on social media to keep up appearances. But the most shocking part? She was still married. Her legal name was Olivia Martinez, and she had a registered address in Scottsdale, Arizona. I cross-checked it with property records. Her real husband owned the house. My heart sank. So all this time, she had been living double lives, marrying men like Daniel, bleeding them dry, and returning home to her real partner with their money. It wasn't just betrayal, it was fraud. And Daniel, for all his flaws, had no idea he was being played next. I gathered everything. Screenshots, court documents, wedding photos, property deeds. I made a neat little folder called Olivia's Greatest Hits. I printed copies, created a digital backup. I even wrote a short summary timeline in case anyone needed a quicker version. I didn't know if I was going to report her or just warn Daniel, but I did know I was going to the wedding. At the very least, they deserve the truth. I RSVP'd as +1 and brought Maya with me. I wore a simple but elegant navy dress, not to impress, but to show I hadn't been destroyed. I was composed, unbothered, at least on the outside. The venue was exactly what I expected: pretentious, overdecorated, and filled with people who barely knew each other but smiled for photos anyway. Daniel saw me from across the garden terrace, his face twisted in confusion. Olivia? She looked like a porcelain doll. Perfect hair, fake warmth, champagne flute in hand. I walked up just as the ceremony music started. Olivia's eyes locked on mine. For the first time, I saw fear in her face. "Congratulations," I said, smiling. "Oh, and I brought a little something for you both." I handed her the folder, thick, heavy, tied with a silk ribbon. Then I turned, nodded politely, and walked away, her fake empire beginning to tremble in her manicured hands. The ceremony had ended, and guests drifted toward the reception area, glasses clinking, laughter echoing across the hall. A well-dressed man with a microphone stood up and said, "If anyone would like to share a few words with the happy couple, now's the time." My heart raced. This was it. I stood slowly, ignoring Maya's worried glance. "I'd like to say something," I said, my voice calm but commanding. Eyes turned, whispers rose. Olivia stiffened in her seat. Daniel blinked in confusion. I walked toward them, folder still in her lap, unopened. I took a deep breath. "Olivia," I said sweetly, "I see you haven't opened your wedding gift yet. Please do." She hesitated. "Now?" "Yes. I think everyone here deserves to see what kind of woman you really are." Her hand shook slightly as she untied the ribbon and flipped open the folder. The first page was a marriage certificate from Arizona, then court records, wedding photos, a timeline. "What is this?" someone gasped. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, turning to the room, "Olivia West is not just a bride today. She's also a serial scammer. Married multiple times, different names, different men. Always wealthy, always heartbroken. She marries, takes what she can, then disappears. Back to her real husband." A wave of shocked murmurs rolled through the crowd. "That's not true!" Olivia shouted, standing abruptly, her voice shrill and cracking. "She's lying. She's obsessed with Daniel." "Am I?" I said, stepping back. "Or am I just the woman who finally pulled off your mask?" Daniel looked pale, frozen. "Olivia, is this true?" She didn't answer. She just grabbed her bag and bolted out of the room. The music stopped. Someone knocked over a champagne tower. The fairy tale had shattered into glass. That night Daniel tried to call me. I didn't answer. But the next day he sent a message. "She's gone. She took my watch collection, cash, my safe password. She even tried to access my investment accounts." I didn't say, "I told you so." I just forwarded him digital copies of all the documents and a contact at the financial crimes unit. He filed a report. Days later, they found her boarding a private charter flight under yet another alias. She was arrested on the spot. Multiple charges: fraud, identity theft, bigamy. Weeks passed. The news of Olivia's arrest spread quickly. She had used at least 5 different aliases, married 3 other men in the last decade, and had open warrants in 2 states. Daniel cooperated fully with the investigation. At her sentencing, he sat in the courtroom, hollow-eyed. I stayed home. That wasn't my battle anymore. I moved forward, quietly. I focused on my new home, my own career. I picked out furniture that reflected who I was, not who we pretended to be. I painted the walls a soft seafoam green. I bought a dog. I started writing again. The loneliness didn't disappear overnight, but it became a companion instead of an enemy. I wasn't healing for someone else. I was healing for me. One afternoon, I found an old photo of Daniel and me in Italy. laughing on a terrace, glasses of wine in hand. I didn't cry. I smiled. That woman in the photo didn't see the storm coming. But the woman holding the photo? She survived it, and she was stronger for it. A few months later, I started getting emails from women who had heard about the wedding incident, friends of Olivia's past victims, even a journalist. They wanted to know how I did it, how I stayed calm, how I exposed her, how I rebuilt. I didn't feel like a hero, but I shared what I could. Because if my story helped even one woman trust her instincts, walk away, or fight back with facts, then maybe everything I went through had purpose. I even considered launching a podcast, something raw, real. Truth before vows, maybe. I imagined guests, women who were betrayed, manipulated, underestimated, but who came back stronger, wiser, freer. I didn't know if I was ready yet, but just thinking about it made me feel alive again. Sometimes, late at night, I'd wonder if Daniel truly understood what he gave up. Not just me, but the version of himself that was good, loyal, honest. Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. But it wasn't mine to carry anymore. A year to the day after I opened that wedding invitation, I took myself out to dinner. Alone. I wore a red dress, ordered champagne, and toasted to my own damn survival. Not to revenge, not to heartbreak, but to rising. They say the best revenge is living well. But I think the best revenge is living as yourself, unapologetically. And I've never been more myself than I am now. Thank you for listening to my story. What is your story? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.